evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the July 10th edition of Effective, Efficient, Affordable, and above all, accountable to you. I'm joined once again this evening by John Gauger. John, welcome.
James.
This evening's show will have a number of themes. The first will simply suggest that if you are not content to sit in your hands and wait for the sky to fall on your head, if you actually want to see something change around town, then a good place to start would be on July 21st with the budget referendum. It is that time again, ladies and gentlemen.
Saturday, the 21st of July, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Voters, registered voters can vote, and property owners of $1,000 or more can vote. You can vote at the Pearson School, or if you're not going to be here, you can vote with an absentee ballot. And the absentee ballot process is you need an application. You can go down and get an application from the town clerk or the assistant town clerk. You can fill it out right there. You can then go in the back room. You can turn it in and go in the back, and she'll print up a ballot for you. You can go in the back room, mark your ballot, and then hand it in, and you voted. So the process is fairly simple. If you are away and you need to mail or request an absentee ballot application, do it now, because the process takes approximately a week. Get the application in. They will mail you the ballot. You can vote in the privacy of your home, and then you can mail it in. But that whole process, if you're not going to walk in and vote on an absentee ballot because you're not going to be here on the 21st, requires about a week. So do that up until about the 14th or 15th of July. So you have about 5 days to do that.
One note of caution: it was brought to my attention this week that you actually can print off the application for a ballot from the town website. Rather peculiarly, if you do that without scaling the picture down, you only get part of the document. If you send in part of the document, it will be rejected as incomplete. So if you do wish to download it from the town's website, you have to scale down the picture before you print it. Just a word of caution to the wise.
This is what now? The
actual application for the absentee ballot.
Okay.
Primary themes for this evening's show. Number one, what is actually in the budget? We always talk about the budget, no one ever knows what's in it. Number two, does the budget actually address the issues that we face here in town? Number three, what are those issues? And number four, if it doesn't address those issues, how should we change it so that it should address those issues? Those are the themes for this evening's show. But before we get there, one niggly little note. We are in July of 2012. We still do not have an audit for the last year.
That being June 30th, 2011.
We are 6 months, 7 months, 8 months behind the times. This will be old news to those of you who lived through this last year. It is somewhat surreal to be talking budgets, taxes, tax increases when you have absolutely no idea where your tax money has been spent. Ladies and gentlemen, when you agree to pay your taxes, you do so under three very general conditions. Number one, that you know where the money is being spent. Number two, that it's being spent well. And number three, you get an audit after the event to show you how it was spent. No one will tell you what's in the budget. People don't stick to budgets. The selectmen, the Board of Education, they change them willy-nilly. And without an audit, we have no idea what the money was spent on. And yet, our civic leaders are quite happy to ask, to demand for more. That's the background, ladies and gentlemen. That's the background.
Just to show you what an audit looks like, this is the audit report for East Haddam. Annual report. I picked it up, I think, last September, October, that time frame. So their audit for the same year has been out for well over 8 months.
And that's the way it should be. It was due on December 31st, 2011. What issues should our budget address? What are the critical problems that we face as a community? What are the things that we need the budget to fix? What do we need the budget to actually do? Let's forget about line items and changes and all the rest of it. What are the big picture issues that we have to fix here in town that the budget is supposed to do? There's some obvious ones. What's some big ones?
Some big ones. You talk to people, and people want the streets fixed, the bridges fixed. The bridge from, I'll call it Sucker Brook Road, down to the lake. You know, there's a variety of things, infrastructure projects that people want addressed, but we never get there. And whether or not you're in favor of it, and it goes into a general fund of stone or asphalt or paving or whatever, it never makes it to the road because, as you stated earlier, it's siphoned off to pay something else. To go forward in any of this stuff, we're going to have to really go to referendums on capital improvements, and if the capital improvement is needed and justified, I believe the people will support it. But what happens is we're collapsing around the same number of people in the town and in the school system and the same number of buildings, and we don't want to get smaller. And whatever goes in the budget really gets eaten up by salaries, benefits, and retirement plans. So these are the catch-alls. Nobody wants to restructure. Nobody wants to get a partner. And when your grand list and your revenues are not growing, to think that you can increase your taxes, especially with a revaluation coming along, is pure folly.
Right. I mean, big picture issues. Number one, declining grand list. This is the central problem of our town. The grand list is our ability to pay taxes. If the grand list is declining, there have to be less taxes. We see this each and every day that we walk through town. There are empty buildings. There is blight. There is vandalism. These are the visible signs of a declining grand list, families leaving town. It is still possible to walk through our streets without being molested. But a declining grand list, vandalism, empty buildings, blight will inevitably lead to arson, social problems, and crime. This is issue number one for Winsted, declining grand list. Issue number two, shrinking students. This is an opportunity for us, ladies and gentlemen. Shrinking students means the ability to be more efficient in our school system, to do more, to do it better, to do it with less. You know how this works. When your kids leave home and they go to college, your grocery bill goes down. You don't carry on buying 6 boxes of cereal every week. You actually buy less. Same principle. Falling student numbers gives the opportunity to actually be more efficient in the schools. Another big issue, the way we deliver services is about as expensive as it is possible to be. And it is about as divorced from success as it is possible to be. Case in point, an obvious one. We have a school system that has just been identified as being among the 30 worst in the state. The 30 worst in the state. And our Board of Education chooses, at the same time that that determination is being made, to award a 13% pay raise to the superintendent. This is a situation in which the cost of services is completely divorced from the success of those services. When you have a failing school system, you do not give out pay raises. It's really that simple. Likewise, if you have short funds, you don't set up your entire compensation structure around benefits that are escalating at double-digit rates. You just don't do it. You set up your compensation structure to be as flexible as possible and as controllable as possible. Lastly, the last big issue that we face, John has already referred to it, it's the reval.
The reval is here, and in Connecticut, it's a double-edged sword, and I'll give you how it works in Connecticut. When the value of properties goes down, the grand list goes down, and our grand list will go from approximately $850 million down towards $600 million. There will be a big hit, and that is because our grand list was last revalued at the peak of the real estate cycle. The problem is that unlike other states like California or New York, where you take the value of the property or the assessed value of the property, and you multiply it by a percentage, 1.25%, 1.5%, and that percentage, 1.25 to 1.5%, is a viable thing that lets a building breathe and survive. But what happens is the revenue from that building goes down because if you have a building that's worth 20% or 30% less, you get 20 or 30% less revenue. In Connecticut, it's totally different. The value of the real estate and the property can go down, but they jack the mill rate up because they want to collect the same amount of taxes. And what happens is you have a burden, especially on the downtown and older town properties, that is out of touch with reality in terms of the 1.25%. I mean, if you are talking today, a downtown property, its value is down 45 to 50%, and you want to phase in reval, you are going to have a burden placed on a property that is worth half as much, subsidizing properties at the Lake Inn and Winchester. And people will just flee.
So those are the big picture issues, ladies and gentlemen. Declining grand list should mean declining taxes. Shrinking students should mean more efficiency. Reval, which is going to raise taxes generally and raise taxes very unequally and very unfairly, needs to be handled sensitively so that people believe that their government is actually responding to their concerns. Only when you've dealt with those core issues can you get back to where John started, which is investment in the town, roads, infrastructure, services. These are the issues our budget needs to be dealing with. So what's in the budget, ladies and gentlemen? No one ever tells you what's in the budget. What is actually in the budget? We're going to flip to a slide, which is going to make this simple. Bottom line, our budget has taxes going up $930,000. If you understand nothing else about the budget, understand that. If you want to understand what's in the budget, you can divide it simplistically into 4 areas: schools, school capital, and town. Put all 4 together, you've got tax increases of $930,000. How do you get there? Schools. Schools is flat. What does schools being flat actually mean? And we'll flip to the second slide. Back to the sec. We'll get it right in a minute. There we go. When flat school funding, we mean the amount of dollars available for schools is flat. There's no change. This is the area where the superintendent's 13% pay rise you're going to find. This is the area where the $1 million of administrative cost in our schools, that's where this shows up. This is where you would have had savings had we closed a building. This is where you would have had savings if we were able to work more closely with the Northwest Community College, with the St. Anthony's, with any number of different partners. This is where you would have had savings from combining the finance groups had the school board been willing to do that. So if the overall pie is the same, the number's flat, the super's compensation's up 13%, the $1 million admin cost is up, there are no savings from buildings, no savings from collaboration, no savings from combining functions, that means that the lost area of expenditure, teaching, gets shortchanged. Now, if that's what you want, ladies and gentlemen, that's perfectly legitimate. You can decide to have a budget in which teaching is shortchanged. But I don't think that that's what the parents signed up for. I don't think that's what anyone signed up for. A budget, a regime, an administration that sets out to shortchange teaching. Back to slide number 3. We'll get to slide number 3 in a minute. School capital is the second line item. This is, the silver bullet that so many people think is going to fix our town. A new school building, a huge renovation. And many people think they were promised that by the current administration. Well, guess what? That promise is not being honored. School capital is 0. It is down $388,000. No capital for schools. Town capital, it's actually up a little, up $250,000. That's basically $200,000 of roads, a very small nubbin of road that John referred to. It's about 1/10 of a mile. And the trucks, or more precisely, 1/5 of the trucks. We're buying a lot of trucks, but we can't afford to buy trucks, ladies and gentlemen, so we're buying them, we're financing them. We're incurring 5 years' worth of interest and fees for these trucks. That's where the trucks are. The trucks and the 1/10 of a mile of road. So where does that leave us? Schools are flat, teaching's down, school capital's down, Town capital's up a little. That means the rest of that big tax increase, about $1 million, a little more than $1 million, is in the town. And the question is, what does $1 million buy you in the town? Well, tax incentives for businesses? Nope, doesn't buy you any of those. Tax incentives for new neighborhood revitalization?
And that's what you need the most.
No, doesn't buy you any of that. Improved services? Nope. Money into the fund balance? Nope. Civil service buys you some civil service. Now, civil service is not the only dumb thing that's in the budget, but we put it up there to make a point. The point, ladies and gentlemen, is civil service is always in the budget because people say the business of appointing employees is too political. Well, I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't trust the police chief to hire a policeman, if you don't trust the town manager to hire a janitor, we have bigger problems than civil service. Civil service is a waste of money. It should be out. The $1 million, what does it buy you? It buys you pay and benefits. That's what it buys you, ladies and gentlemen. You are being asked to pony up $1 million in additional taxes for pay and benefits for existing people to do the same thing that they're doing, which isn't working. You want to know what's in the budget? That's what's in the budget.
The budget is pay and benefits.
And that's a tragedy. That truly is a
and
tragedy.
retirements.
So we started out by asking, what issues does the budget need to address? It needs to address the falling grand list. It needs to address the opportunity offered by shrinking students. It needs to address the cost of our services. It needs to address the looming reval. We just told you what's in the budget. Do you think it addresses those issues? Faced with the reval, we're getting crushed by new taxes. $930,000 of new taxes. Are we saving to meet the challenges of a declining grand list?
The thing that happens is we hunker down and we continue to do things the way we've always done them. And we have way too much capacity, whether it be in the sewer, in the water, in the schools, in the town. Nobody wants to give up anything. And if you don't want to give up anything and change, you'll never get there. Because the thing that is happening is the value of the thing that you're taxing has declined, and declined substantially. And there is no more revenue generation at this point in time. And if you think you're going to lay another $1 million of taxes on what exists and still keep everybody in place without having it decline, you're dead wrong.
That just can't work, ladies and gentlemen. It just can't
I mean, the basic premise doesn't work.
If your grand list is declining, taxes have to decline. You have to save money in order to trim your sails. The reval is going to crush a portion of town unfairly. You have to save money. Have to make cuts. You have to streamline services. With student enrollment shrinking, we have to be able to take advantage of that to deliver a quality product, a quality education more efficiently. Yet the school board will tell you that we're getting an extra $200,000. It's not in the budget by virtue of being an alliance district, and we're going to do great things with that money. And we should give them the benefit of the doubt, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully they will craft an excellent program with an additional $200,000 and make a difference. But that's only half the story, because the $200,000 is recognition that the existing services aren't working. We don't have a quality education right now. So as we layer on that additional spending, we need to cut back the existing programs that don't work. If you have a leaky roof, you can't just keep putting new shingles on top of the old roof. You do that over and over and again, your roof gets too heavy and your house collapses. You have to rip the old roof off. If our services aren't working, if we have new sources of revenue to design new services, we have to get rid of the old ones as well. Otherwise, we're just increasing spend every single time and never getting any efficiencies.
The bottom line is, with a declining revenue base and with the reval coming up, you have to bring the spending under the threshold that it was last year, and then next year you have to bring it under the threshold that it is this year. If you don't do that, if you can't demonstrate to the public with all the things that are shrinking within the town that you cannot re-energize whatever program you have and make it smaller and make it better, then you're doomed to fail. And we've seen a lot of failures here. I mean, we've had a very viable hospital for a long time, and by the time it was done, it had 4 patients in it. You can't run a hospital with 4 patients. It closed. And the only thing that is propping up Gilbert in the education system here is, you know, political mumbo jumbo with the state. I mean, you're taking measurements and you're doing measurements and saying you need this amount of money, but is the end product what you want for your kid? And for my wife and I, it was no.
We absolutely have to look at staffing issues, people issues generally. We need to optimize how we deliver service, what sort of people we have, how many of them we have. We need to optimize the way we handle benefits. Benefits escalate more rapidly than salaries. We need to focus on that and recognize that. We need to recognize that family benefits represent something that no one in the private sector has anymore.
No one in the state sector has it.
And yet, Winstead wants to keep that. That can't work, ladies and gentlemen. We saw by simply addressing the cost, not the actual benefits, the cost of one individual's benefits in town hall, we saved $5,000. If we could do that for all 300 employees, that's $1.5 million, without changing anybody's benefits, just changing the cost. If we are more radical and perhaps more forward-thinking, if we say that over time you're going to have to pick up the cost of your family benefits, $10,000, $15,000 a head, if we assume there are 100 people with family benefits, again, that's $1 million to $1.5 million of savings. We need to be doing these things. We need to be talking about these things. We need to be planning so that our employees understand what's coming down the pike, because it is coming down the pike.
It will get here. And if you don't change, and you don't change in a gradual, and by gradual I mean over the next 3 to 5 years, way, you are going to face things that Rhode Island and California and Wisconsin have faced, in which there is going to be wholesale change, and people are not going to like it, but you know, it's just what you're going to be able to afford.
Right. Finally, we need to be investing in the fund balance. It's a critical component of our town. Without it, we cannot borrow money. Without a fund balance, we cannot do anything to attract businesses to our town. This budget is not investing in the fund balance. It's not attracting development, investment, businesses, employers to the town. It's doing nothing even to maintain those we have. To answer the question, does this budget address the needs that we identified at the top of the program? No. And it's not because, as Marianne Welcome says, we have no planner. That's not the problem, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is it's not addressing the core needs. It's not addressing the declining fund balance, the declining grand list, the reval that's coming up, and the whole basis of our cost base. So what's the answer? What do we need the budget to actually do? What should this budget do? What, hopefully after July the 21st, when you vote this budget down, will the next budget do? We need to go back to basics. That means living within our means. The grand list is shrinking. The number of students is shrinking. The reval is going to have tax raises across the board. If we cannot afford to pony up more taxes, then the budget cannot grow. It's that simple. We got to reduce to the point where our budget, our spending is sustainable. And sustainable is defined as something that you can vote for. Anything you won't vote for, not sustainable.
That's right. And you know, the burden is now placed on those that go to the referendum and vote, and I will be one that goes and votes, and I will be voting no. The gauntlet has been thrown down. The mayor says that she's not making any changes, and you know, from my perspective, it's better off to vote it down and continue to vote it down if you won't make any changes, and live on last year's budget. I mean, you know, to make a statement that you're not going to address the core issue is to say, well, you know, keep paying and keep being frustrated. And I personally am not going to do that.
Right. And likewise, I will not be voting for this budget. This budget doesn't achieve what we needed to do. It doesn't reduce spending so that we can live within our means. It doesn't eliminate the waste and reorganize the spending that remains. It basically embraces business as usual. It says, we don't care if you change the business for a better result, if you change the business for a cheaper result. We don't want better results. We don't want cheaper results. We just want the same results we had before. We want the same failure that we had before. We want to be on the same road that has got us to where we are today. And we certainly don't want to reinvest. That's what this budget is saying. No reinvestment, ladies and gentlemen. No bringing business to town, no bringing new residents to town. We certainly don't want that. Just as we didn't want the farmers market to grow, we don't want to reinvest. And the fundamental problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is we need some honesty out of our leaders. We need people to acknowledge that we have fundamental problems, that we need to actually generate the political will to deal with those problems. We can't have more happy talk. We're going to build a new school. We're going to build a new police station. We can't have a Board of Education crying poverty and giving away 13% pay raises to its superintendent. This is just not acceptable. This is not the way the world works. This is a slap in the face to every voter in town. We don't want empty promises. We're not children to be fobbed off by this nonsense. We want to be dealt with some modicum of respect, and we want to move forward to actually craft a budget that addresses our issues, that stops the terminal decline, stops the vicious cycle that we are in, and begins to reinvest in this community. Because it is a community, ladies and gentlemen. We both live here.
Yes.
John has lived here for a lot longer than I have. We live here because it is a community. But it will not be a community if we don't address these very real issues in a way that actually works.
The spending has to come down. You have to reduce. You have to restructure. And restructure is on both sides of the aisle, Board of Education and the town side. And once you get it smaller and you get the cost contained and you get the increases in cost on a yearly basis contained, then you can start to generate some cash and reinvest in the town.
That's the very simple message, ladies and gentlemen. Marianne Welcome is convening a committee to prove to you that it's more expensive to run 2 schools than 3 schools.
And
tell her to go boil her head, ladies and gentlemen. That is just
common sense tells you that if you shut something down and you don't pay heat, you don't pay electricity, you don't pay staffing, you're going to save money.
And that is the attitude that the leadership in this town is bringing us right now. It is bringing us a budget that doesn't meet our needs. It is bringing us a committee dedicated before the data is even collected to a nonsensical answer. This is a leadership that is dedicated to more of the same that hasn't worked, more of the same that doesn't work, more of the same that will not work. Vote no on July 21st, ladies and gentlemen. Vote no for a budget that does not meet any of your needs. Because only by voting no will you have the opportunity to vote yes for a budget that does meet your needs.
And they have to come back with another budget, and, we'll see. But my vote on the 21st is no.
And we very much hope that your vote will be no also.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we will see you next week.